How are you guys doing? Today is Saturday, May 1st, 2021, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to review the Elite matchups and performances from yesterday, Friday, April 30th, and of course, I'm going to preview everything that's going on today as we navigate through the world of sports one day at a time. Looking at yesterday's primetime NBA matches, I guess before that, it's worth knowing that the second and third rounds of the NFL draft were last night, and then really shifting to what's going on in the NBA. The first primetime matchup was in Brooklyn as the Nets hosted the Portland Trailblazers. The Trailblazers would outscore the Brooklyn Nets by 17 in the second half to beat the Brooklyn Nets 129-109 by 19 total points. For the Brooklyn Nets in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting point guard out of Duke, Kyrie Irving. He finished with 28 points, 2 rebounds, and 3 assists in 33 minutes as he shot 12 for 26 from the field, 2 for 8 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the line. And then alongside him in the starting lineup, their elite starting power forward, Blake Griffin, would finish with 11 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists in 24 minutes as he shot 4 for 12 from the field, 2 for 7 from 3, and he made his only free throw attempt on the night. For the Portland Trailblazers, their leading scorer was their elite starting point guard, Damian Lillard. He finished with 32 points, 7 rebounds, and 9 assists in 36 minutes. He shot 12 for 22 from the field and 8 for 13 from 3. And then on their starting center, Yusuf Nurkic would finish with 23 points and 11 rebounds in 26 minutes, shooting 9 for 12 from the field and 5 for 7 from the foul line. With this win, the Portland Trailblazers are now 35-28. That is the 7th best record in the Western Conference, as they have now won their last 3 games and 4 of their last 10. In the Western Conference playoff picture, they currently trail the 6th-place Dallas Mavericks by half a game. They sit 2.5 games ahead of the 8th-place Memphis Grizzlies, and they currently sit 10 games behind the Phoenix Suns and the Utah Jazz at the moment. With this loss, the Brooklyn Nets are now 43-21. Even though they've won 6 of their last 10 games, that is the best record in the Eastern Conference. Is with this loss, they've still won 6 of their last 10 games. At the moment, they still sit half a game ahead of the second place Philadelphia 76ers as one of the only 2 teams that have clinched a playoff spot in the East. They currently sit 12 games ahead of the 8th place Charlotte Hornets, just inside the playoff picture. And they currently sit 23.5 games ahead of the Orlando Magic and the Detroit Pistons, who are currently tied for the worst record in the conference. Looking out to the other game of the night, the Los Angeles Lakers host the Sacramento Kings as the defending NBA Finals MVP, LeBron James, is able to make his return from injury. In this matchup, the Kings would beat the Lakers 110-106 after outscoring the Lakers by 14, coming into the fourth quarter trailing by 10. For the Los Angeles Lakers in this matchup, their leading scorer was their elite power forward, Anthony Davis, who finished with 22 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, and 5 blocks. In 34 minutes, he shot 9 for 19 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the line. And then their goated small forward, LeBron James, would finish with 16 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, and 5 turnovers in 32 minutes, as the King would shoot 6 for 12 from the field, 1 for 5 from 3, and 3 for 5 from the foul line. For the Sacramento Kings, their leading scorer was their starting point guard, their rookie Tyrese Halliburton, who finished with 23 points, 10 assists, and 2 steals in 39 minutes. He shot 8 for 14 from the field, 4 for 8 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the line. And then their starting center, Richaun Holmes, would finish with 22 points and 9 rebounds in 31 minutes. He shot 9 for 14 from the field and 4 for 5 from the foul line. With this win, the Sacramento Kings are now 26-37. That is the 4th worst record in the Western Conference, as they have won 4 of their last 10 games. They currently sit 6.5 games behind the 8th place Memphis Grizzlies outside of the Western Conference playoff picture, and they sit 19 total games behind the Phoenix Suns and Utah Jazz, sitting on top. Looking at the games that weren't on prime time, first jumping out to Philadelphia, the 76ers hosted the Atlanta Hawks and were able to pull off a 126-104 win. They won by 22 after outscoring the Atlanta Hawks 42-20 in the second quarter by 22. The rest of the game was virtually even except for the second quarter. For the Atlanta Hawks, their leading scorer was their elite starting point guard, Trae Young, out of Oklahoma. He finished with 32 points and 4 assists in 28 minutes, shooting 10 for 19 from the field, 2 for 6 from 3, and a perfect 10 for 10 from the foul line. For the Philadelphia 76ers, their leading scorer came off the bench as the reigning NBA as the rating multiple-time NBA Defensive Player of the Year, Dwight Howard would finish with 19 points, 11 rebounds, and 2 blocks in 17 minutes. He would shoot 8 for 11 from the field and 3 for 6 from the foul line on the night. Their elite starting center, Joel Embiid, would finish with 18 points and 6 rebounds in 25 minutes, shooting 6 for 14 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, and a perfect 5 for 5 from the line. And their elite starting point guard, Ben Simmons, would finish with 18 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists in 27 minutes, as Ben shot 8 for 10 from the field and a perfect 2 for 2 from the line. With this win, the Philadelphia 76ers are now 42-21. That is the second best record in the Eastern Conference, as they have now won their last 3 games and 6 of their last 10. Sitting comfortably with the playoff spot, they hold with the second best record in the East. They currently sit half a game behind the first place Brooklyn Nets. They sit 3 games ahead of the third place Milwaukee Bucks, just to give a sense of where the Sixers sit. With this loss, the Atlanta Hawks are now 34-30. They are tied with the Boston Celtics for the 5th best record in the Eastern Conference, as they have now lost their last 3 games and 5 of their last 10. In the Eastern Conference playoff picture, they currently sit a game and a half behind the fourth place New York Knicks, and they currently sit half a game ahead of the 7th place Miami Heat at the moment, as they currently trail the first place Brooklyn Nets by 9 total games in the conference. Jumping out to Boston, the Boston Celtics, who now have the same record. They got the same record after beating the San Antonio Spurs 143-140, as Jason Tatum would put up probably one of the best nights in Boston Celtics history. But first, starting out with the San Antonio Spurs, their leading scorer was their starting small forward, DeMar DeRozan. He finished with 30 points, 5 rebounds, 14 assists, and 2 steals in 42 minutes, as he shot 7 for 21 from the field and 16 for 19 from the foul line. Their starting point guard, DeJounte Murray, would finish with 24 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists in 43 minutes, as he shot 10 for 18 from the field, a perfect 2 for 2 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the line. And then off the bench, their shooting guard, Lonnie Walker IV out of Miami, would finish with 24 points in 34 minutes, shooting 9 for 12 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the line. For the Boston Celtics, their leading scorer and the top performer of the night came from their elite starting small forward, Jason Tatum out of Duke. Jason Tatum would finish with 60 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists, as of course he hit a career high, and he tied Larry Bird for the most points in a single game for the Boston Celtics. In 45 minutes, Tatum would shoot 20 for 37 from the field, 5 for 7 from 3, and 15 for 17 from the line. And then their all-star starting shooting guard, Jaylen Brown, would finish with 17 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks in 44 minutes, as Brown would shoot 5 for 24 from the field, 4 for 12 from 3, and 3 for 5 from the foul line. With this win, the Boston Celtics, just like the Atlanta Hawks, are now 34-30, tied for the 5th best record in the East, as they have now won their last 2 games and 6 of their last 10. In the Eastern Conference playoff picture, they now sit a game and a half behind the 4th place New York Knicks, and they sit half a game ahead of the 7th place Miami Heat, as they currently trail the first place Brooklyn Nets by 9 games in the conference. With this loss, the San Antonio Spurs are now 31-31. That is the 9th best record in the Western Conference, as they have now lost their last 2 games and 5 of their last 10. They currently sit a game behind the 8th place Memphis Grizzlies outside of the Western Conference playoff picture, and they sit 13.5 games behind the Phoenix Suns and Utah Jazz in the conference. Looking out to Cleveland, the Cleveland Cavaliers hosted the Washington Wizards. The Wizards were able to beat the Cavaliers 122-93, as Russell Westbrook's triple-double streak continues. For the Cleveland Cavaliers in this matchup, their leading scorer was their starting point guard, Colin Sexton. He finished with 22 points and 7 rebounds, as well as 8 turnovers in 32 minutes, as he shot 7 for 19 from the field and a perfect 7 for 7 from the line. For the Washington Wizards, their leading scorer would be their elite starting shooting guard out of Florida, Bradley Beal, who finished with 19 points and 3 assists in 26 minutes. He shot 8 for 24 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the line. And then their elite starting point guard, Russell Westbrook, would finish with 15 points, 12 rebounds, and 11 assists in 31 minutes. He shot 5 for 12 from the field and a perfect 5 for 5 from the line on the night. With this win, the Washington Wizards are now 29-34. That is the 10th best record in the Eastern Conference, as they have now won their last 2 games and 9 of their last 10. At the moment, they sit a game and a half outside of the Eastern Conference playoff picture. This is the closest that they've been all season, and they currently sit 13.5 games behind the first place Brooklyn Nets in the conference. With this loss, the Cleveland Cavaliers are now 21-42. That is the 3rd worst record in the East, as they have now lost their last 5 games and 8 of their last 10. They sit 9.5 7.5 games behind the 8th place Charlotte Hornets. Out in the Eastern Conference, as of course they have 9 games left. So it seems as though they're virtually out of the playoff picture, and they currently sit 21.5 games behind the first place Brooklyn Nets at the moment. Jumping out to Memphis, the Memphis Grizzlies hosted the Orlando Magic and were able to pull up a 92-75 win. They won this game by 17 after outscoring the Magic by 21 points in the third quarter, outscoring them 36-15. For the Magic in this matchup, their leading scorers would be their starting point guard Cole Anthony and their center Mo Bamba. Anthony would finish with 15 points and 6 rebounds in 29 minutes, shooting 7 for 14 from the field and 1 for 3 from the foul line. Then off the bench, Mo Bamba would finish with 15 points, 11 rebounds, and 4 blocks in 23 minutes, shooting 6 for 9 from the field, 2 for 3 from 3, and 1 for 2 from the foul line. For the Memphis Grizzlies, their leading scorer would be their starting small forward out of Oregon, Dillon Brooks, who finished with 20 points in 34 minutes. He shot 7 for 18 from the field and 3 for 4 from the foul line. And their elite starting point guard, Ja Morant, would finish with 8 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 steals in 33 minutes, along with the play of the night, which was a windmill jam in the second quarter in transition. He would shoot 3 for 12 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3, and 1 for 2 from the foul line on the night. With this win, the Memphis Grizzlies are now 32-30 in the Western Conference. That is the 8th best record, as they have now won 5 of their last 10 games. In the playoff picture, they currently sit 2.5 games behind the 7th place Portland Trailblazers, and they currently sit a game ahead of the 9th place San Antonio Spurs, who are sitting on the outside looking in. Overall, they trail the Suns and the Jazz by 12.5 games in the conference. And then with this loss, the Orlando Magic are now 19-44. They are tied with the Detroit Pistons for the worst record in the Eastern Conference, as they have now lost 8 of their last 10 games. They sit 11.5 games behind the 8th place Charlotte Hornets, as of course they are officially eliminated from the playoff picture, and they currently sit 23.5 games behind the first place Brooklyn Nets in the conference, just to give a sense. Jumping out to Chicago, the Chicago Bulls hosted the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Bucks were able to beat the Bulls 108-98. They went on to outscore Chicago by 12 in the first and by 9 in the third. For the Bulls in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting point guard out of UNC, Kobe White. He would finish with 21 points and 7 assists in 35 minutes, shooting 6 for 15 from the field, 4 for 8 from 3, and a perfect 5 for 5 from the line. And then their all-star starting center, Nikola Vucevic, would finish with 17 points, 15 rebounds, and 4 assists in 36 minutes, as he shot 7 for 27 from the field, 1 for 9 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the line. For the Milwaukee Bucks, their leading scorers would finish with 22 points on the night. Their starting small forward, their former all-star, Chris Middleton, would finish with 22 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists in 32 minutes. He shot 8 for 24 from the field, 3 for 8 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. And then their starting center, Brook Lopez, will finish with 22 points and 4 blocks in 34 minutes. He shot 9 for 15 from the field and 4 for 5 from the foul line. With this win, the Milwaukee Bucks are now 39-24. That is the 3rd best record in the Eastern Conference, as they have now won 6 of their last 10 games. At the moment, they currently sit 2 games behind the 2nd place Philadelphia 76ers and 4 games ahead of the New York Knicks. At the moment, they sit 8.5 games ahead of the Charlotte Hornets, as they currently have 9 more games to go, so they very well could clinch a playoff spot with their next win. Jumping out to Phoenix, speaking of 2 teams that have already clinched the playoffs, the Suns hosted the Utah Jazz, and they were able to tie the Jazz at the top of the West, and technically on the head-to-head, they now have the best record for the first time in the Western Conference for a very long time, since I'm pretty sure Steve Nash was the starting point guard. But regardless, they would win this game 121-100. They outscored Utah by 16 points in the first quarter and carried that momentum through the end of the game. For the Jazz, their leading scorer would be their starting small forward, Bojan Bogdanovic, who finished with 22 points in 28 minutes, shooting 6 for 11 from the field, and 8 for 9 from the foul line. And then their elite starting center, Rudy Gobert, would finish with 8 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 blocks in 24 minutes, shooting 3 for 4 from the field and a perfect 2 for 2 from the line. For the Phoenix Suns, their leading scorer would be their elite starting shooting guard, Devin Booker, who finished with 31 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists in 29 minutes, shooting 13 for 19 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the line. And then their elite starting point guard, Chris Paul, would finish with 12 points, 3 rebounds, and 9 assists in 21 minutes as he shot 5 for 9 from the field and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. With this win for the Phoenix Suns and loss for the Utah Jazz, both these teams are now 45-18. They are both tied for the best record in the Western Conference. The Suns have won their last 3 games and 7 of their last 10. The Jazz have now lost 5 of their last 10 games. But regardless, both of these teams currently sit 2.5 games ahead of the third-place Los Angeles Clippers. They sit 12.5 games ahead of the 8th-place Memphis Grizzlies within the playoff picture, which of course explains the fact that they're the only 2 teams that have clinched the playoffs out of the West. And they currently sit 29 games ahead of the 15th-place Houston Rockets at the moment. And as of right now, that is what the NBA is looking like following yesterday's games. Looking into what's going on today, because of course today is Saturday at 7:30. The Houston Rockets are going to host the Golden State Warriors on ESPN, as of course Stephen Curry is looking to help get the Golden State Warriors back in the playoff picture. And the Rockets are coming off of a 50-point performance from 20-year-old Kevin Porter Jr., so that's going to be interesting as well. And then at 10 o'clock following that one, the Clippers, who currently hold the 3rd best record in the West, are going to host the Denver Nuggets, the holders of the 4th best record. That game's going to be on ESPN. I'm not sure if Kawhi is going to be back, but this is still going to be an interesting game to watch. I think this is a rematch from last year's second round of the West, where the Nuggets came back and beat the Clippers. Outside of the primetime games at 7 o'clock, the Charlotte Hornets are going to host the Detroit Pistons. At 8 o'clock, the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to host the Miami Heat. The Atlanta Hawks are going to host the Chicago Bulls. The Orlando Magic are going to host the Memphis Grizzlies. The Minnesota Timberwolves are going to host the New Orleans Pelicans. And the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to host the Indiana Pacers. At 9 o'clock, the Dallas Mavericks are going to host the Washington Wizards. And then at 10 o'clock, the Utah Jazz, one of the holders of the league's best record, are going to host the Toronto Raptors. So that's what the NBA is looking like. Staying within the arena, but shifting the focus or shifting the attention to the ice just to get a sense of what's going on in the NHL, as the NHL season is ticking down to its very end. Not that many games from yesterday, but of course, starting north of the border, the Montreal Canadiens were able to beat the Jets 5-3 to pick up their 22nd win of the season. With this win, the Montreal Canadiens are currently holding the 4th best record in the table, as they sit 16 points behind the first place Toronto Maple Leafs as a whole. Jumping out west, the Colorado Avalanche were able to beat the San Jose Sharks 3-0 to get their 32nd win of the season. With this win, the Colorado Avalanche hold the 2nd best record in the West, as they sit 4 points behind the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Speaking of the Golden Knights went to Phoenix to face off against the Coyotes, and the Coyotes blanked the Golden Knights 3-0 to get their 22nd win. With this win, the Arizona Coyotes now hold the 5th best record, as they currently sit 23 points behind the first place Golden Knights in the table. And last but not least, taking it out to the LA matchup, the Anaheim Ducks would host the Los Angeles Kings. The Kings would beat the Ducks 2-1 to pick up their 19th win of the season. With this win, the Kings now hold the 2nd worst record in the West over the Ducks, as they now sit 28 points behind the first place Golden Knights in the table. That is what the NHL is looking like following yesterday's games. Looking at what's going on today, starting with the prime times, it seems as though the Minnesota Wild are going to host the St. Louis Blues on ESPN Plus at 8. At the same time, same network, the Nashville Predators are going to host the Dallas Stars. And then outside of the primetime games at 1 o'clock, the Boston Bruins are going to host the Buffalo Sabres. At 3, the Red Wings are going to host the Lightning. At 7, the Islanders are going to host the Rangers. The Philadelphia Flyers are going to host the New Jersey Devils. The Washington Capitals are going to host the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Carolina Hurricanes are going to host the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Montreal Canadiens are going to host the Ottawa Senators. And the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to host the Vancouver Canucks. A lot of games coming on at once. And then you have the Blackhawks hosting the Panthers at 8. Then the Avalanche hosting the Sharks at the same time. And then at 10 o'clock, the Oilers are going to host the Flames. The Coyotes are going to host the Golden Knights. and the Anaheim Ducks are going to host the Los Angeles Kings, just to get a sense of what's going on in the NHL. Really quickly looking at what's going on in the MLB following yesterday's game. Starting off in Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh Pirates hosted the St. Louis Cardinals, and the Cardinals were able to get their 14th win of the season, giving Gant his second. For the Pittsburgh Pirates in this matchup, the start and the loss will go to JT Brubaker. Brubaker would allow 3 earned runs in 5 innings pitched as he struck out 7 on the day. With this loss, he is 2-2 as a starting pitcher. The only player on the team that finished with more than one hit was their shortstop, Kevin Newman, who finished with 24. Well, he finished 2 for 4 with an RBI and a run for himself. For the St. Louis Cardinals, the start and the win would go to John Gant. Gant would allow only 1 earned run in 5 innings pitched as he struck out 2 on the day. He is now 2-2 as a starting pitcher for St. Louis. In their batting lineup, their elite first baseman, Nolan Arenado, will go, or the elite first baseman, Paul Goldschmidt, will go 0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts. Their elite third baseman, Nolan Arenado, will go 2 for 5 with 2 RBIs on the day. And then their left fielder, Tyler O'Neill, will go 3 for 4 with an RBI and 2 runs as he hit his 5th home run of the season for the Cardinals yesterday. With this win, the St. Louis Cardinals are now 14-12. That is the second best record in the National League Central, as they now trail the first place Milwaukee Brewers by 2 games in the division. With this loss, the Pittsburgh Pirates are now 12-13. They are tied with the Cincinnati Reds for the third best record in the National League Central, as they now trail the Milwaukee Brewers by 3.5 games in the division. Jumping out to Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Phillies were able to beat the Mets 2-1 to pick up their 13th win of the season, led by Anderson, as Anderson picked up his first win of the season. For the New York Mets, the start and the loss will go to Marcus Stroman, who actually allowed no total earned runs, but at the end of the day, he still gave up 2 runs on himself, and that would end up giving him the loss as he pitched 5 innings. With this loss, he's now 3-2 as a starting pitcher for the Mets. In their batting lineup, their elite shortstop, Francisco Lindor, would go 0 for 5 as he struck out. Their elite first baseman, Pete Alonso, would go 1 for 4 with a run as he struck out for himself. The only player with more than 1 hit on the team was their third baseman, J.D. Davis, who went 2 for 3. For the Philadelphia Phillies, the start and the win went to Chase Anderson, who allowed 1 earned run in 5 innings pitched as he struck out 6. With this win, Chase Anderson is 1-3 as a starting pitcher on the season. No one on the team was able to log more than 1 hit, as no one on the team actually got an RBI. Their elite, or I guess, no, I mean, with all this, with this win, the Philadelphia Phillies are now 13-13. That is the best record in the National League East, as they now sit 1 game ahead of the Atlanta Braves, the Washington Nationals, and the New York Mets at the moment. With this loss, the Mets are now 9-11. That is the 4th best record in the East, in the National League East, as they now trail the first place Philadelphia Phillies by a game in the conference or in the division. Jumping out to Washington, D.C. for 2 more teams within the same division, the Washington Nationals were able to beat the Miami Marlins 2-1. All of these runs coming in the 10th inning. Garrett Cooper would put the Marlins up by 1, but then it'll be a Kyle Schwarber walk-off 2-run home run to give the Washington Nationals the advantage, to give them their 10th win of the season. For the Miami Marlins in this matchup, the start will go to Pablo Lopez. Lopez would allow no earned runs in 7 innings pitched as he struck out 2 on the day. The loss, however, would go to their relief pitcher, Yimi Garcia. Garcia would allow 1 earned run while not logging a single out. With this loss, he is now 2-2 as a relief pitcher with Miami. In their lineup, the only player that had more than 1 hit was their right fielder, Garrett Cooper, who went 2 for 5 with an RBI. With the Washington Nationals, the start went to John Lester. Lester allowed no earned runs in 5 innings pitches. He only struck out 1 batter. The win will go to their relief pitcher, Brad Hand. Brad Hand would allow no earned runs in the 2 innings that he pitched. I guess he allowed 1 total run. He gave up the RBI, but since the runner was on second, the earned run isn't charged to him, and he got a strikeout on the day. With this win, Brad Hand is 2-0 as a relief pitcher. In their batting lineup, their second baseman, Josh Harrison, would end up going 2 for 3. Their right fielder, Yadiel Hernandez, would go 3 for 4 for himself. Their left fielder, Kyle Schwarber, would go 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run as he hit his 2nd home run of the season yesterday. And then their center fielder, Victor Robles, would go 2 for 3 on the night. With this win, the Washington Nationals are now 10-12. That is the 3rd best record in the National League East, as they now trail the first place Philadelphia Phillies by a game in the division. With this loss, the Miami Marlins are now 11-14. That is the worst record in the National League East, and they currently trail the first place Philadelphia Phillies by a game and a half in the division. Jumping out to New York, the New York Yankees hosted the Detroit Tigers, and Garrett Cole was able to help them completely blank them 10-0. For the Detroit Tigers in this matchup, the start and the loss would go to their starting pitcher, Tariq Skubal. Skubal would allow 4 earned runs in 3 innings pitches. He struck out only 1 batter on the day. With this loss, Skubal is now 0-4 as a starting pitcher this season. In the batting lineup for Detroit, no one was able to log more than 1 hit on the day. Of course, you're going to credit that to the elite pitcher from the Yankees, Garrett Cole, who had the start and the win. He would allow no earned runs and only 4 hits in 6 innings pitches. He struck out 12 batters on the day. With this win, Garrett Cole is 4-1 as a starting pitcher this season. In their batting lineup, their elite first baseman, DJ LeMahieu, would go 1-for-4 with a run. Their elite designated hitter, Giancarlo Stanton, would go 3-for-5 with 2 runs. And then their elite right fielder, Aaron Judge, I think would be the best hitter of the day, as he went 2-for-4 with 5 RBIs and 2 runs. He hit his 6th and 7th home runs of the season yesterday. He hit 2 of them. Their third baseman, Gio Urshela, would go 2-for-5 with an RBI. Their elite shortstop, Gleyber Torres, would go 1-for-3 with a run. And their center fielder, Aaron Hicks, would go 2-for-5 with 2 RBIs and a run. With this win, the New York Yankees are now 12-14. That is the 4th best, or they're tied with the Orioles for the worst record in the American League East, as they both trail the first place Boston Red Sox by 4.5 games in the division. With this loss, the Detroit Tigers are now 8-19. That is the worst record in the American League Central, as they now trail the first place Kansas City Royals by 8.5 games in the season so far. Jumping out to Cincinnati, the Cincinnati Reds hosted the Chicago Cubs and were able to pull off an 8-6 win at home, giving Wade Miley his 3rd win of the season. For the Cubs, the start and the loss will go to Jake Arrieta. He allowed 7 earned runs in 3.1 innings pitches. He struck out 2 on the day. In their batting lineup, their catcher, Wilson Contreras, would go 2-for-3 on the day. Their elite right fielder, Chris Bryant, will go 2-for-3 with 2 RBIs, 2 runs, and 2 walks, as he hit his 7th home run of the season, the only one for the Cubs yesterday. Their elite shortstop, Javier Baez, would go 1-for-4 with 2 RBIs, and then their second baseman, David Bote, would end up going 2-for-5 himself. For the Cincinnati Reds, the win would go to Wade Miley. Wade Miley would go on to allow 2 earned runs in 5 innings pitches. He struck out 3 batters on the day. With this win, Wade Miley is now 3-2 as a starting pitcher for Cincinnati. In their batting lineup, their Hall of Fame possible inductee, Joey Votto, would go 3-for-4, 3 RBIs and a run, as he hit his 5th home run of the season yesterday and his 300th career home run. So, of course, great milestone for him. And with this win, the Cincinnati Reds are now 12-13. They are tied with the Pittsburgh Pirates for the 3rd best record in the National League Central, as they now trail the Milwaukee Brewers by 3.5 games in the division. With this loss, the Chicago Cubs are 11-15. That is the worst record in the National League Central, as they now trail the first place Milwaukee Brewers by 5 games in the division. Jumping out to Tampa Bay, the Rays hosted the Houston Astros. The Astros were able to pull off a 9-2 win to give Lance McCullers his 2nd win of the season. For the Tampa Bay Rays, the start went to Ryan Yarbrough. Yarbrough would allow 5 earned runs in 6 innings pitches. He struck out 5. With this loss, Yarbrough was 1-3 as a starting pitcher for Tampa Bay. In their lineup, their second baseman, Brandon Lau, would end up going 2-for-4 for himself. He was the only player with more than 1 hit on the team. And then for the Houston Astros, the start and the win would go to Lance McCullers Jr., who allowed no earned runs in 7 innings pitches. He struck out 9 on the day. He only allowed 3 hits. With this win, Lance McCullers Jr. is 2-1 as a starter for the Houston Astros. In their batting lineup, their left fielder, Michael Brantley, would go 4-for-5 with an RBI and 3 runs. Their elite third baseman, Alex Bregman, would go 2-for-5 with 2 RBIs and a run. He hit the only home run of the day for both teams. He hit his 4th home run of the season. Their designated hitter, Yordan Alvarez, would go 2-for-5 with a run. Their shortstop, Carlos Correa, would go 4-for-5 with an RBI and a run. And then their first baseman, Aldemez Diaz, would go 2-for-5 with 4 RBIs and a run on the game. With this win, the Houston Astros are now 14-12. That is the 3rd best record in the American League West, as they now trail the Oakland Athletics by 1.5 games in the division. With this loss, the Tampa Bay Rays are now 13-14. That is the 3rd best record in the American League East, as they now trail the first place Boston Red Sox by 4 games in the division. Jumping out to Toronto, the Blue Jays hosted the Atlanta Braves and were able to pull up a 13-5 win, one of their biggest wins of the season, giving Robbie Ray his first win. For the Braves, the start and the loss went to Drew Smyly. Smyly would allow 5 earned runs in 4 innings pitched, as he struck out 3 on the day. In their batting lineup, their elite center fielder, Ronald Acuna Jr., would go 1-for-3 with with a run. Their elite first baseman, the reigning National League MVP, Freddie Freeman, will go 1 for 4 with an RBI. Their elite left fielder, Marcell Ozuna, will go 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run. Their elite second baseman, Ozzie Albies, will go 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run, as he hit his 5th home run of the season yesterday. And then their designated hitter, Travis d'Arnaud, will go 2 for 4 on the night. For the Toronto Blue Jays, the win would go to Robbie Ray. Ray would allow 2 earned runs and 6.2 innings pitches. He struck out 5 on the day. With this win, he is 1-1 as a starting pitcher for Toronto. In their batting lineup, their shortstop Bo Bichette will go 2 for 5 with 2 RBIs and 2 runs, as he hit his 7th home run of the season yesterday. Their elite first baseman Vladimir Guerrero Jr. will go 1 for 2 with an RBI and a run, as he walked literally 3 times. He wasn't able to hit a home run, but he saw an incredible game for himself. Their right fielder, Teoscar Hernandez, will go 2 for 5 with 3 RBIs and a run. He hit his 2nd home run of the season yesterday. Their left fielder, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., would go 3 for 5 with an RBI and 2 runs. Gurriel would hit his 2nd home run of the season yesterday as well. Their third baseman, Santiago Espinal, will go 2 for 5 with a run. And then their catcher in this matchup, Alejandro Kirk, will go 2 for 4 with 4 RBIs and 3 runs, as Kirk would hit his 2nd and 3rd home run of the season yesterday. With this win, the Toronto Blue Jays are now 12-12. That is the 2nd best record in the American League East. They now trail the first place Boston Red Sox by 3.5 games in the division. And with this loss, the Atlanta Braves are now 12-14. That is the 2nd best record in the National League East, as they now trail the first place Philadelphia Phillies by a game in the division. Jumping out to Dallas, the Texas Rangers hosted the Boston Red Sox. The Red Sox were able to beat the Rangers 6-1 in the first. They scored all of their runs in the game in the first 3 innings. The last 6 were basically just for show. For the Texas Rangers in this matchup, the start and the loss will go to Kohei Arihara. He would end up allowing 6 earned runs and 2.2 innings pitches, as he struck out 1 on the day. With this loss, Arihara is 2-3 as a starting pitcher for the Rangers. The only player on the team that was able to log more than 1 hit was their third baseman, Brock Holt. Holt will go 2 for 3 with an RBI for himself. He had the only RBI for Texas. For the Red Sox, the start and the win went to Nathan Eovaldi, who allowed 1 earned run and 6 innings pitches as he struck out 5. With this win, Eovaldi is 4-2 as a starting pitcher this season. In their batting lineup, the only player that had more than 1 hit was their elite designated hitter, JD Martinez. He went 3 for 4 with 4 RBIs and 2 runs as he hit his 8th and his 9th home run of the season yesterday. Big game from JD. And with this win, the Boston Red Sox are now 17-10. That is the best record in the American League East, as they currently hold the best record in the American League and the best record in the MLB as a whole. They currently sit 3.5 games ahead of the 2nd place Toronto Blue Jays at the moment. Jumping out to Minneapolis, the Minnesota Timberwolves the Minnesota Twins hosted the Kansas City Royals and were able to pull up a 9-1 win to give Pineda his 2nd win of the season. For the Royals, the start and the loss will go to Brady Singer, who allowed 1 earned run and 2 innings pitched as he struck out 1. With this loss, Brady Singer is 1-3 as a starting pitcher. And then no one on their batting lineup was able to log more than 1 hit, as their elite second baseman, Whit Merrifield, would go 0 for 4 with a strikeout. And then their elite catcher, Salvador Perez, would go 1 for 3 with 2 strikeouts. For the Minnesota Twins, the start and the win would go to Michael Pineda, who would allow 1 earned run and 5 innings pitches as he struck out 5. With this win, he is now 2-1 on the season as a starting pitcher. Their elite designated hitter, Nelson Cruz, will go 0 for 2 with an RBI and a run with 2 walks on the day. And their first baseman, Alex Kirilloff, would end up going 2 for 4 with 4 RBIs and 2 runs as he hit his 1st and 2nd home run. And then their second baseman, Jorge Polanco, will go 2 for 4 with a run on the day. With this win, the Minnesota Twins are now 9-15. That is the 4th best record in the American League Central, as they now trail the Kansas City Royals by 6 games in the division. With this loss, the Kansas City Royals are now 15-9. They still hold the best record in the division at 5-9. At the moment, they sit 1.5 games ahead of the 2nd place Chicago White Sox in the division. Speaking of the White Sox, they hosted the Cleveland Indians yesterday, and the Indians were able to get the win in the south side of Chicago, led by their elite starting pitcher Shane Bieber. The start and the loss for the White Sox will go to Dallas Keuchel, who allowed 4 earned runs and 6 innings pitches. He struck out 4. The former AL Cy Young winner is now 1-1 as a starting pitcher for the Chicago White Sox this season. In their batting lineup, their elite shortstop, Tim Anderson, would go 2 for 5 with an RBI and a run for himself. Their elite first baseman, the reigning American League MVP, Jose Abreu, would go 0 for 4 as he struck out once. And then their their center fielder, Luis Robert, would go 2 for 4 with an RBI for himself. For the Cleveland Indians, the win went to their elite starting pitcher, Shane Bieber, who allowed only 3 runs in 6 innings pitched as he struck out 11 batters on the day. And then the save would end up going to Emmanuel Clase, his 5th of the season, as he did not allow a single run. In their batting lineup, their elite third baseman, Jose Ramirez, would be the only player who had more than 1 hit as he went 2 for 4 with 3 RBIs and 2 runs. Jose Ramirez would hit his 7th home run of the season yesterday. And with this win, the Cleveland Indians are now 12-12. That is the 3rd best record in the American League Central, as they now sit 3 games behind the first place Kansas City Royals in the division. And with this loss, the Chicago White Sox are now 14-11. That is the 2nd best record in the American League Central, as they now trail the first place Kansas City Royals by 1.5 games in the division. Jumping out to Milwaukee, the Milwaukee Brewers hosted the Los Angeles Dodgers, and they were able to pull up a 3-1 win, giving Freddie Peralta his 3rd win of the season. For the Los Angeles Dodgers, the start will go to Edwin Uceda, who made his major league debut. He allowed 2 earned runs in the 2 innings that he pitched as he struck out 2. With this loss, he is now 0-1 to start his MLB career. In their batting lineup, their elite shortstop, Corey Seager, would go 0 for 3 as he got struck out. And then the only player that had an RBI was AJ Pollock, who would end up going 1 for 3 with an RBI and a run. He had one of the 2 hits and one of the only RBIs, as of course he hit his 2nd home run of the season. For the Milwaukee Brewers, the start and the win will go to their starting pitcher, Freddie Peralta, who only allowed 1 earned run and 1 hit in 6 innings pitched as he struck out 7 batters on the day. With this win, Freddie Peralta is now 3-0, and also Josh Hader was able to log his 7th save of the season after striking out all 3 of the batters that he faced and pushing his ERA back below 1 this season. In their batting lineup, no one on the team had more than 1 hit, believe it or not. But then their center fielder, Jackie Bradley Jr., would finish with 2 of the 3 RBIs. He went 2 for 2 with 1 for 2 with 2 RBIs and a run on the day, as he hit his 2nd home run of the season yesterday. With this win, the Milwaukee Brewers are now 16-10. That is the best record in the National League Central at the moment, as they now sit 2 games ahead of the 2nd place St. Louis Cardinals in the division. With this loss, the defending champs Los Angeles Dodgers are now 16-11. That is the 2nd best record in the National League West, as they now trail the first place San Francisco Giants by 0.5 game in the division. Jumping out to Phoenix, the Arizona Diamondbacks hosted the Colorado Rockies and were able to pull up a 7-2 win behind Madison Bumgarner. For the Colorado Rockies, the start and the loss will go to John Gray. John Gray would allow 4 earned runs in 6 innings pitched as he struck out 3. With this loss, Gray is now 3-2 as a starting pitcher. Their first baseman, CJ Cron, would go 2 for 4 with an RBI. Their left fielder, who in this matchup was Jonathan Daza, would end up going 2 for 4 for himself. And then their third baseman, Josh Fuentes, would go 2 for 4 with a run for himself. And then for the Arizona Diamondbacks, the win would go to the reigning World Series MVP, Madison Bumgarner, who allowed 1 earned run in 5 innings pitched as he struck out 6 batters on the day. With this win, Madison Bumgarner is now 3-2 on the season as a starting pitcher for Arizona. In their batting lineup, their first baseman, Asdrubal Cabrera, would go 2 for 2 with 2 RBIs and a run and 2 walks. And then their catcher, Carson Kelly, would go 2 for 4 with a run. And then their third baseman, Eduardo Escobar, would end up going 2 for 4 with an RBI and a run for himself. With this win, the Arizona Diamondbacks are now 14-12. That is the 4th best record in the National League West. They now trail the first place San Francisco Giants by 2 games in the division. And with this loss, the Colorado Rockies are now 9-17. That is the worst record in the National League West, as they now trail the first place San Francisco Giants by 7 games in the division. Jumping out to Oakland, the Oakland Athletics hosted the Baltimore Orioles, and the Orioles were able to pull up a 3-2 win, led by John Means. For the Oakland Athletics in this matchup, the start and the loss would end up going to Mike Fiers. Mike Fiers would pitch 6 innings and only allow 3 runs as he struck out 3 on the day. With this loss, Fiers is now 0-1 as a starting pitcher for the A's this season, and in their lineup, their catcher Sean Murphy would end up going 2-for-4 with an RBI and a run, and then their elite third baseman Matt Chapman would go 1-for-3. Sean Murphy would hit his 4th home run of the season, going back to how he performed. And then for Baltimore, the start and the win would go to John Means, who allowed 2 earned runs in 7 innings pitched as he struck out 9 batters on the day. And of course, the save would go to their closer, Cesar Valdez. Cesar Valdez would not allow a single run in the last inning, so of course, big pitching outcome from him. And then in their batting lineup, their first baseman Ryan Mountcastle would be the only player who had more than 1 hit, as he went 2-for-4. Cedric Mullins had 2 of the 3 RBIs as he went 1-for-4, and he hit his 4th home run of the season. Regardless, with this win, the Baltimore Orioles are now 12-14. They are tied with the New York Yankees for the worst record in the American League East, as they now trail the first place Boston Red Sox by 4.5 games in the division. With this loss, the Oakland Athletics are 16-11. That is still the best record in the American League West, as they now sit 1 game ahead of the Seattle Mariners at the moment in the division. Speaking of the Seattle Mariners, the Mariners hosted the LA Angels, and the Mariners were able to beat the Angels 7-4, as Drew Steckenrider would pick up his second win with the Seattle Mariners. For the Angels, the start and the loss would end up going to their starting pitcher, Andrew Heaney. Heaney would allow 4 earned runs in 3.1 innings pitched as he struck out 5 on the day. In their batting lineup, the only player who had more than 1 hit was their goated center fielder, Mike Trout. He went 2-for-4 with 2 runs, and then their elite third baseman, Anthony Rendon, would go 1-for-4 with an RBI for himself. For the Seattle Mariners, their starting pitcher was Chris Flexen, who allowed 3 earned runs in 4 innings pitched as he struck out nobody. The win will go to their first relief pitcher, Drew Steckenrider. Steckenrider would allow no earned runs in the 2 innings that he pitched as he struck out 3. With this win, Steckenrider is now 2-1 as the starting as a relief pitcher for the Seattle Mariners at the moment. And then last but not least, I guess, and then looking at their lineup, their right fielder, Mitch Haniger, would go 2-for-4 with an RBI and a run for himself as he hit his 6th home run of the season. And then their second baseman, Dylan Moore, would end up going 2-for-3 with 2 RBIs and 2 runs. Dylan Moore would hit his 2nd home run of the season. Their shortstop, J.P. Crawford, would go 2-for-4 with an RBI and a run for himself. And then Todd Murphy, their designated hitter, would go 2-for-3 with 2 RBIs and a run. With this win, the Seattle Mariners are now 15-12. That is the second best record in the American League West, as they sit 1 game behind the first place Oakland Athletics. And with this loss, the Los Angeles Angels are now currently 12-12. That is the 4th best record in the American League West, as they now sit 2.5 games behind the first place Oakland Athletics. Last but not least, jumping out to San Diego, the San Diego Padres now host the San Francisco Giants, or they host the San Francisco Giants and were able to pull up a 3-2 win to give their elite starting pitcher Yu Darvish his 3rd win of the season. For the San Francisco Giants, the start went to their starting pitcher, Logan Webb, who allowed 3 earned runs in 6 innings pitched as he struck out 4 on the day. With this loss, Logan Webb is 1-2 on the season as a starting pitcher. And then their catcher, the reigning National League MVP, Buster Posey, would end up going, or not the reigning, but a former National League MVP, Buster Posey, would go 2-for-4 with an RBI and 2 runs as he had his 6th home run of the season for the Giants. He tried to get them all in there, but of course they couldn't get past the line. And then for the San Diego Padres, the start and the win would go to their elite starting pitcher, Yu Darvish, who allowed only 1 earned run in 6.1 innings pitched. He struck out 12 on the day. With this win, Yu Darvish is now 3-1 as a starting pitcher, as Mark Melancon now has 9 saves as a closer this season. In their batting lineup, their center fielder, Trent Grisham, will go 2-for-3 with a run. Their elite shortstop, Fernando Tatis Jr., will go 0-for-4 as he struck out twice. Their elite third baseman, Manny Machado, would also go 0-for-4. And then their first baseman, Eric Hosmer, will go 2-for-3 with an RBI and a run for himself. With this win, the San Diego Padres are now 15-12. That is currently the 3rd best record in the National League West, as they now trail the first place San Francisco Giants by 1.5 games. And of course, with this loss, the San Francisco Giants are sitting at the very top with a 16-10 record, as they now sit half a game ahead of the defending champ Los Angeles Dodgers. That is what the MLB is looking like leading into today's matchup. Of course, going through what's going on today. Because today is Saturday, teams are midway through their weekend series. Starting at 4:05, Lance Lynn and the Chicago White Sox are going to host Tristan McKinney and the Cleveland Indians at 4:05 on FS1. And then at 8:40, the San Diego Padres, led by their elite starting pitcher Blake Snell, are going to host Anthony Desclafini and the San Francisco Giants. And then outside of the primetime game, starting from the top, then at 1:05, Jameson Taillon and the New York Yankees are going to host Spencer Turnbull and the Detroit Tigers. At the same time, Patrick Corbin and the Washington Nationals are going to host Paul Campbell and the Miami Marlins. At 7:10, Matt Shoemaker and the Minnesota Twins are going to host Danny Duffy and the Kansas City Royals. At 4:05, Jesus Luzardo and the Oakland Athletics are going to host Matt Harvey and the Baltimore Orioles. At 4:10, Luis Castillo and the Cincinnati Reds are going to host Zach Davies and the Chicago Cubs. And at the same time, Josh Fleming and the Tampa Bay Rays are going to host Jose Urquidy and the Houston Astros. At 6:05, Zach Wheeler and the Philadelphia Phillies are going to host Taijuan Walker and the New York Mets. At 6:35, Trevor Cahill and the Pittsburgh Pirates are going to host the St. Louis Cardinals, led by their elite starting pitcher Jack Flaherty, who still has yet to lose a game this season. At 7:05, Jordan Lyles and the Texas Rangers are going to host Eduardo Rodriguez and the Boston Red Sox. At 7:07, Travis Bergen and the Toronto Blue Jays are going to host Charlie Morton and the Atlanta Braves. At 7:10, Brandon Woodruff and the Milwaukee Brewers are going to host the defending champs Los Angeles Dodgers, led by Dustin May. At 8:10, Zach Gallen and the Arizona Diamondbacks are going to host Austin Gomber and the Colorado Rockies. And then at 9:10, last but not least, LJ Newsome and the Seattle Mariners are going to host Griffin Canning and the Los Angeles Angels. So that is what the MLB is looking like after yesterday's matchups. Looking out really quickly to see what's going on in the world of soccer. Like I said, not many big games were played yesterday, but of course, every game somewhat matters in the sport. Jumping out to see what's going on. First off, Southampton drew with Leicester City, so of course that gives Chelsea the chance to, I guess, move closer in the table. And then RB Leipzig was able to beat Werder Bremen in what was the DFB Pokal semifinals. So, of course, they will advance to the championship round where they will get a chance at the trophy. Julian Nagelsmann, that's his opportunity before he leaves for Bayern. That's pretty much everything that went on for yesterday. Looking at what's going on today, starting in the Premier League at 7:30, Crystal Palace is going to host Man City. Man City sitting at the top of the table. With 5 games left, they sit 10 games ahead of second place Man U. A win here could be what they need to clinch if Man U loses. But still, the pressure is on Man City to win, but not all the pressure. They very well could walk away with the title this weekend. Also, Chelsea's going to host Fulham at 12:30. And Chelsea currently holds the 4th best record in the Premier League as they currently sit 3 points ahead of West Ham and 5 points behind Leicester City as they're trying to qualify for Champions League next season. There are a lot of MLS games, but I'm not going to get into those now. And then the German Cup semifinal matchup will happen today as Borussia Dortmund will host Holstein Kiel. This game will be on ESPN News and ESPN Deportes as the winner of this matchup will face off against Leipzig in the German Cup final. In the Italian Serie A, Inter Milan, that's currently sitting at the top of the table, is going to face off against Crotone at noon. Looking at where they sit in the table, they currently sit 11 points ahead of second place Atalanta with 5 games left. They also have a chance of possibly clinching the league with this win here. And also AC Milan's going to host Benevento as they hold on to the 5th best record in the table. A win here could do a lot for their standing and get them right back into Champions League play. Looking at what's going on in La Liga, Elche is going to host Atletico Madrid at 10:15 as Atletico Madrid currently hold on to the best record in Spain. The pressure is definitely on them considering they're 2 points ahead of Real Madrid and Barcelona. Speaking of Real Madrid, they're hosting Osasuna at 3 o'clock, and it is still incredibly possible that Real Madrid could pass Atletico Madrid for the best record in Spain today. And then last but not least, jumping out to France, checking out what's going on with 2 of the top teams out there. The 2 of the top teams are not going to play. They're not playing against each other, but they're playing roughly at the same time. The top team, Lille, is going to host Nice. Nice is the 9th best team in France as they are 34 games into their season. And then PSG, 1 point behind them, is going to host Lens at 11 o'clock. So that will be, of course, we can see how the Ligue 1 will shape for both teams, but the pressure is most definitely on both these teams to succeed and try to win the Ligue 1 title. As it is very possible that PSG could lose the French title. But with that said, that is virtually everything going on for today, Saturday, May 1st, 2021, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims. I want to thank you for listening to this piece. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you with the new episode once all of these exhibitions are finished. I'll come at you tomorrow, Sunday, May 2nd, the day of my graduation from Duke. Once again, I want to thank everyone for listening to my piece. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Peace out.